The history of Africa and the formation of its countries, from 4000 BCE to 2025. The history of Africa is one of the deepest and most mysterious in the world. Around 4000 BCE, ancient civilizations began to develop along the Nile and in the Sahara. The legendary Egyptian civilization left behind pyramids, temples, and hieroglyphs, which remain among the greatest symbols of world culture. At the same time, in other parts of Africa, smaller but no less important communities were forming: herders, farmers, and traders who built the foundation for future states. By 1000 BCE, large trading routes had already spread across the continent. Gold, ivory, and salt were exported from Africa, while in return came fabrics, beads, and even knowledge from the Middle East and Asia. Great empires arose: Kush, Aksum, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, whose rulers became legends. Cities like Timbuktu were centers of knowledge, where libraries and universities existed long before the European Renaissance. From the 8th to the 15th centuries, Islam spread through much of North and West Africa, blending with local traditions and creating unique cultural forms. In the south and east of the continent, powerful kingdoms flourished: Great Zimbabwe with its mysterious stone walls, or the Swahili city-states along the Indian Ocean coast, which traded with Arabia, India, and even China. Everything changed with the arrival of Europeans in the 15th century. First came the Portuguese, then the French, British, Dutch, and others. The continent was gradually drawn into the global trade network, and most tragically, into the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of Africans were forcibly taken to the Americas, and this became one of the darkest chapters in human history. By the 19th century, during the so-called scramble for Africa, European powers divided almost the entire continent among themselves. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 determined borders without considering the local peoples, languages, or cultures. That is why today many African countries have such straight and artificial borders, drawn by rulers with a ruler and map, rather than shaped by the natural course of history. The 20th century brought change. After World War II, a massive wave of decolonization began. Between the 1950s and 1970s, dozens of countries gained independence: Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Algeria, Angola, and many others. However, independence came with enormous challenges: ethnic conflicts, poverty, weak economies, and disputes over borders that had never reflected the reality of peoples and tribes. Today, Africa is home to over 1.4 billion people, nearly 1/6 of the world's population. It is the youngest continent in terms of demographics, with most of its population under 25. Africa is rich in natural resources: oil, diamonds, gold, rare minerals, but at the same time, many countries remain economically unstable. Some scholars argue that if Africa had not been colonized, it could have developed powerful civilizations on its own, perhaps even rivaling Europe and Asia. Others believe that colonialism, while destructive, also linked Africa to global processes, making its current influence possible. By 2025, Africa continues to be a continent of contradictions. On one hand, it suffers from poverty, corruption, and wars. On the other hand, it shows rapid growth in technology, education, and urbanization. Major cities like Lagos, Cairo, Nairobi, Johannesburg are turning into centers of innovation. Some even call Africa the continent of the future, as it holds enormous potential to become a key player in global politics and economics in the 21st century. Thus, Africa's history, from the great empires of the past to modern states with borders drawn by outsiders, remains both fascinating and complex. The straight lines on the map tell a story not of natural growth, but of forced division. Yet behind these lines lies the rich and powerful heritage of peoples who have shaped the destiny of humanity for millennia.